Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Main Street. Gary Allen with you on this July 2nd, just before the 4th of July. We have a great show for you. Just a quick reminder, Jeffrey Mark will be filling in for me again next week. Still going through some dental stuff. That's the reason I'm wearing the mask. I do not want to offend anyone out there, and I want to make sure you guys are all happy. We have a fabulous show for you, as we try to every Friday here at 4 on Main Street, on Twitch.tv, as well as Facebook and YouTube. And later on, I'll be putting a lot of this stuff out there. You can go back in case you missed the show. All right. The guests that I have on today are from the Elks Club USA. These are three wonderful people. They're in Tampa right now for their national convention, and we're lucky enough to get them. Mary Morgan, she's the Director of National Veteran Services. She will be joining us, along with Deborah Doles. She's Assistant Director of the ENF. That's the Elks National Foundation. And of course, Rick Gathen, who has joined us one other time before. He's a membership and marketing manager, and they're all out of the Chicago area, a town that I love very, very much. By the way, I would be remiss if I didn't say, please go get your shot if you can. This Delta virus, this thing from the COVID-19 is moving around again. It's starting to build up. Go and get your shots, please. Take care of yourselves over the 4th of July holiday. I'll speak of that before we get off the air. But before we go any further, let me bring on our three guests, Mary, Deborah, and Rick. Hey, there you are.
Hey.
Welcome to Main Street.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And before we go too far, it's Rick on the left, it's Mary in the middle, and Deborah on the right. Now, before we get into all the programs and the grant programs that you folks have with the Elks, I want to know, what was it about the Elks that you three said, I want to join the Elks and I want to be part of what it is that they do? What was it that stimulated your interest enough to go ahead and want to join?
That's a great question. I think I've worked for the Elks National Foundation the longest, right? Rick, you've probably been an Elk for longer.
27 years.
Okay, yeah. I've been an Elk for about 18 or 19 years. But I was inspired by the Elks National Foundation is the charitable arm of the Membership Association, of which Rick and Mary work for. And I was just inspired by the programs that we offer across the country, scholarships. And I actually was brought on to help develop a grant program. And Mary and I worked together for a long time with that grant program. So there are just good people doing good things all across this country. And that's definitely what's kept me here for 16, going on 17 years.
Well, you don't look like you've been anywhere 16. You look like you just got out of high school yesterday.
Oh, I'll come by every Friday for you, Gary.
I don't know about for Mary. For me, my first attraction was that it had no political affiliations since its beginning. That it immediately took out that it had to be a servant to any political party, that it was a direct link from a volunteer organization for the betterment of the community, to really go directly to where people were hurting. And to me, that still is the appeal. We control what we can do best to help our communities and create the programs. And Grand Lodge has really given us the grant through the Elks National Foundation to do more than ever before for the betterment of our community. So that's really was the start for me, and it still is the driving force in my heart.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Mary?
So I didn't know that much about the Elks organization until I started working for the Elks, and that's what inspired me to join. There really is a real heart there for service and for helping people in need in their communities. And that's one of my favorite parts of my job is, I can say, the VA wants the Elks to help end veteran homelessness. And, people were stepping up and raising their hands. I didn't have to recruit volunteers. People were ready. They said, we're in, let's do it. How do we start it?
That's one of the things, as Rick will tell you, ladies, probably after the show is over, I'm going to be joining the lodge down in Miami that my good friend Rick Del Vecchio is a member of, and Mike Kahler. And one of the things that I would like to participate in with you, three of you, if we can, as time moves on, is doing programs like this for the veterans to let the people out there know that they need help and how they can get their help and the guidelines and where they can be referred to. Because I was shocked And Rick, I told this to you, and Mary and Deborah, I told you this before the program. I was shocked. I know there were a lot of veterans who are homeless. I know that. It's just a fact of life. There are homeless people in general. It's not right, but it's the fact of life. But there's over 40,000 veterans, ladies and gentlemen, every night that are homeless for one reason or another. And thanks to the Elks and other VA organizations and organizations in general that help veterans, because it's so shocking, folks, that we have to chip in to pick up where the government doesn't seem to care anymore. And as a veteran, I'm appalled by it.
Well, we agree.
Yeah, it's a tough problem. I will say there has been a significant amount of progress in the last 15 years. Veteran homelessness has fallen about 25%. And a lot of that is due to outreach between the VA and their partners. People are starting to really take up the cause and find ways to help in their communities. And so, that 40,000 number is devastating, but it used to be higher. So we are making an impact. Our programs are making an impact, and every veteran housed feels like a huge victory.
Yeah. I mean, and their families as well, because sometimes it doesn't just happen to the veteran; it happens to their families and children that suddenly they become homeless for one reason or another, and because of this pandemic, with people being unemployed. I don't care what anybody says, that $300 a week isn't going to pay for many mortgages and car payments and everything as you go along. Yes, right. It helps. And we do need to get back to work. We do. Absolutely. 100% we do. Deborah, you kind of control the reins on the ENF, which is the Elks National Foundation. Talk about that, and then we'll get into some specific programs and grants that Mary is involved with and that Rick is involved with.
Well, sure. As I said, the Elks National Foundation is the charitable arm of the organization. And so we have many different programs that we fund, one of which, of course, is the Veterans Service Commission. And back to what we were just talking about, which is ending veteran homelessness, we pledged $4 million back at our convention in 2015, right? To help Mary and her team and all of our volunteers out there help end veteran homelessness. Right now, that is $1.6 million a year the foundation is contributing to that through the Dap Program. Our total disbursements are about $36.4 million, and that goes to fund scholarship programs, our community investments program, which is our grant program, which is our largest program at more than $14 million. Wow. And we have youth programs developing gritty kids through our Elks Hoop Shoot free throw program. We have a drug awareness program that we fund. And then, of course, Mary's Veteran Services program. And then we also give back money to our state. Every state has an Elks association that the foundation provides funds to, and then they do even more charitable work with that. So, nutshell, we rely on our volunteers across the country to help us do our programs. And right now, Rick can probably talk a little bit more than I can about how many members we have, but it's more than 750,000, I believe.
Right, right under 770,000, and with the pandemic, all numbers went down. We went down about 5%, but we were, what we did not know is how quickly we would come back. And the data is pointing that we thought maybe it'd take 2 or 3 years for our numbers to come back. We're very optimistic. The first quarter of the year, we're on a plus 20,000 pace. They're pouring back. Again, we were probably some of the first to get the vaccine. The states opened a little bit earlier than we had hoped. And I think the good karma for us was that while our lodges when the time they were locked down, for business, they may have locked down our doors, but they could not unlock our hearts. We were out there helping the veterans. We were out there with the food banks. We were out there helping our communities. Just because our doors were locked, our hearts were never locked. We were out there leading our communities for the betterment of those. And I think that karma is probably a reason why our numbers are soaring back. And I'm optimistic by nature. I not only think we'll respond within 1 year, I think we'll get back to the path of growth we were on because we were leaders and really worked hard during the pandemic to help others when the government could not stand up for some of these people. So we fought for them. We made sure they were fed. We made sure that they were taken care of. Our veterans, we couldn't get in the doors, but there we were with clothes and food and cards and love during this. That karma is helping our numbers. I get excited about it.
For sure.
Mary, what about your end of it? I mean, you're part of this as well. Are you seeing a growth potential continuing to move forward now the pandemic is hopefully, thank God, coming down to an end, that we have it under control a little bit? Are you seeing growth in other areas? And one question to all of you, this is kind of a two-parter. Can the money that is sent, Deborah, to the local lodges, can they pretty much do whatever they want with it, so long as it is helping veterans or people that are in need, including members of the lodges themselves?
Put me in a tough spot here. The grants do have various criteria, but they're intended for charitable giving. But Mary, you want to talk a little bit about freedom grants that are actually specifically for veterans in need?
Yes.
Go ahead,
So some of the grants are specifically focused on serving veterans in need in their communities. And that can be pretty different in different places. You know, we have, small town Montana, their outreach project might look a little bit different than a lodge in Brooklyn. So we do allow some customization of our volunteers there. And it's been a long year. I can say the volunteers for the Veterans Program and for all of our programs, it was hard, especially a lot of VA medical centers, a lot of veterans, homeless shelters, a lot of state veterans homes. They all shut down to volunteers because they had to. It was the right thing to do. But for many of our volunteers, that was very difficult. I had volunteers from, small town Washington calling me and saying, the VA won't let me in and I have to get these supplies to the homeless veterans in the shelter. Can you make a phone call and get me in? And I have to say, no, I can't. The VAs are shut down to visitors, for safety purposes. So our volunteers found ways to be there for sure over the last year, from, providing food baskets. And we had some volunteers who would do things like hire a band to play a concert outside of a state veterans home so the veterans could open their windows and hear the music. We had some people figure out how to play bingo over the hospital intercom without getting everybody in the same room. There were some really innovative things, but people are really excited about getting back out there and connecting directly with veterans in all of the locations that we do serve vets. And so we're seeing that come back, and we think it's going to be a bigger year than ever.
We have 3 members of the Veterans Organization, USA, on, and I love your motto: so long as there are veterans, the benevolent and protective order of the Elks will never forget them. And that kind of brings tears to my eyes, because for so long, veterans have been forgotten. As soon as the usefulness of a veteran is over, they're forgotten. And I love the fact that what you folks do. Mary, when we talk about like the emergency assist program, what are we talking about here? Where does that program, what are some of the limitations, the guidelines, and who does it help with the veterans? And then we're going to get into some of the scholastic awards and programs that you have also.
Yeah, so the Elks Emergency Assistance Fund is one of the programs under our outreach to veterans experiencing homelessness. And so that specific program, we partner with social workers at VA facilities across the country. And what they can do is they can work with the veterans that they're serving to submit an application to us for help with rent, utilities, or security deposits. The fund is intended to help veterans either exit homelessness or prevent homelessness. And so the majority of our assistance there, I think it's about 40% of that goes towards rent, 30% of it goes towards security deposits, and then 25% goes to utilities. We do honor special requests. Occasionally when it comes up, there are things that you can never predict, like a veteran with a service dog who can't pay the vet bills and they don't know where to go, where to turn. And, if they don't have their service dog, they can't keep their job. And, how do we help keep that veteran housed? We'll step in and do things like pay the vet bill. And so we'll pay up to $2,500 to veterans for that, which doesn't, seem like a lot, but for a lot of these veterans, it makes a huge difference because we come in, right when they apply, we get the money out of our doors that same week. So to help veterans from being evicted, to help them secure apartments if they're leaving rehab or a shelter, or a lot of times, living on the streets and need to get into an apartment. And a lot of times their benefits will cover the rent moving forward, but they can't come up with that security deposit. And that's a huge barrier. When your discretionary income is $100 a month, a $700 security deposit is extremely difficult to come up with. And so we step in and we provide that. And it's one of my favorite programs that we do. It makes a huge difference. We get wonderful feedback from our veterans. And we're so happy that we can do that. And one thing we've learned is it is surprisingly easy to fall into homelessness. I mean, it can take, you lose your job and then your car breaks down and it takes you a couple months to find another job. And then all of a sudden you have 2 months of bills and it can be really hard to get back on your feet. And so we're able to step in a lot of times and keep people housed. And a lot of times that is a veteran's whole family, their children as well, so that they don't have to go to a shelter and lose their belongings, start all over.
Yeah, I think I read a statistic not long ago that most families in America during this pandemic and prior to it a little bit were one paycheck away from being homeless. And that's not just veterans. I mean, that's just generally people alike. Where for the people out there who are members of the Elks Club who may not be familiar with the parameters of this program, how do they find out more about it? Do they go on elks.com and find out? Can they call you at your office? I mean, what are the things that they can do to help make their club, wherever they are, lodge, participate in this to help more veterans?
Yeah, they can definitely call our office anytime. They can go to our website, which is elks.org/vets. We have a lot of information on there about the program, stories about veterans that we've helped. We have some videos about veterans who have received assistance through that program. And of course, we're always accepting donations for people who want to help support that program. We do provide up to $2,500 in assistance to veterans, but the average amount that we give out is $1,600. So veterans tend to only ask for what they need. They can handle it themselves. We're just giving them the assistance that they've earned to, the handout that they need to stay housed.
How do most veterans, if there's a veteran out there or there's somebody watching that knows of a veteran that's in trouble, do they go to the local lodge, wherever that may be in the United States or wherever, and say, hey, this person and this family needs help? And then the lodge, is there someone in the lodges who's familiar with these things and can immediately begin the process of filling out the applications and getting things put in the right direction?
Definitely. We have a designated veterans chair at every lodge who can handle requests like that. And they often send them to our office. And what we do is we partner with our VA contacts, with other nonprofits to connect those veterans directly with what they need.
So the VA is also like a sister in this whole situation. It's a marriage between the Elks and the Veterans Administration to help facilitate these needs that veterans have. What if, we're going to get into a program that I really think is fabulous about members of the Elks and how they're taken care of in case they become disabled. But what if it's a veteran who you've been helping and for some unknown reason, he's no longer with us, but he has a wife and children that he's leaving behind? Do the Elks come in then and help? Is there a program that assists them a little bit more to help them get back on their feet after they've lost their loved one?
Well, our programs are focused on serving veterans, but we have a huge lodge grant program and a lot of other resources available for community members who need assistance. And Debbie can certainly share more about that.
Sure. I mean, as Mary said, our small grants that go to communities. So we're in 1,850 communities across the country, and as we already mentioned, we're 770,000 Elks strong. This past year, we've been talking a lot about the pandemic and needing to pivot and just how creative people were. we awarded 4,100 grants to these lodges, to almost 1,600 of the lodges. So, I mean, that's, that's a really high percentage of our grants that went directly to help communities. That, our Elks members are really part of the fabric of community. So to your point about, a widow or a widower left behind, if that individual makes themselves known to the lodge in whatever way that they could help, they're going to do that. Dovetailing on what Mary was saying about the emergency assistance grants, like veterans asking for what they need, and that's about an average of $1,500, right? We love to hear these stories, and Mary's got just a whole treasure trove of them. But that real ripple effect, that if you don't have money to fix your car, then you lose your car, then you lose your job and all of that. And so many of our small grants go to, we talk about getting, just getting a roof over your head is just one aspect of that. And many of our grants go to actually what we call welcome home kits. And so that's what you need to live. A roof is one thing, but you need a lot of things to go in that house, and things that maybe we all take for granted, that we're going to be able to go buy some sheets and new towels and dishes and pots and pans and all that, or get them from people we know, but that's not always the case. And so a lot of our grants go to that sort of thing.
We're talking with three members of the Elks USA: Mary Morgan, who is the Director of National Veterans Services; Deborah Doles, Assistant Director of ENF, which is the Elks National Foundation; and Rick Gathen, a good friend of mine, who's in charge of membership and marketing for the United States. Rick, since you've been there kind of silent, I'm going to get you involved in this here a little bit. I love talking to the beautiful ladies. By the way, I think I'm going to need a letter from the three of you for me to join the lodge in Miami, because for years I used to say to Delvecchio, he's like a big brother to me now that I've lost my older brother, Michael, but Rick is like a big brother to me. And he said, Gary, I don't know if they're going to let you in through the front door. So I may need a letter from the three of you saying, Gary's okay. Gary's okay. Rick, the membership, the average person that becomes a member of an Elks Lodge, you three have traveled the nation, meeting a lot of different people, new members, older members, et cetera, et cetera. What is the common denominator of why someone wants to join? We know why the three of you joined, but what's the common denominator of why someone wants to be a member of the Elks, other than the fact that it's a great place to go and have dinner and have a few drinks with your friends? But there's other aspects of it too that I'm sure that gets right to the heart of the matter.
Well, first of all, the betterment of the community. Especially if you're new to the community, you can't join a better organization that's geared towards the betterment of the community itself. People also want transparency in terms of if they see something, whether it's a veteran or a child with cancer, whatever it might be, they can decide that this is going to be our fundraiser. This is where our money goes, and it goes directly into that community to help that cause. So to be able to touch, feel, and make a difference at home I think that is probably one of the greatest reasons to become a member. Going back to the original, is we're a volunteer organization, so this money is not going to any kind of overhead or national office. It's when you raise that money, it goes into that community. It's meant to go directly to have that impact. And the people that you're joining with, for the most part, we are really blessed with. We have all walks of life as our members. I mean, it could be just anyone, from a retiree or someone starting off, or, we've had 5 presidents of the United States as members. It's a melting pot in terms of the people that have a great heart towards the betterment of they just want to do something good. It just warms their heart, it warms their soul to do something in their community without risk of the money going to someplace that they didn't know. Again, you get to touch, feel, and be a part of everything you do in an Elks Lodge. And I think that gives us an advantage. I call it more of a warming of the soul. It just makes you feel better knowing that you actually changed somebody's life. Get a veteran off the street, help a special needs child, someone's house burns down. I mean, my very first meeting as an Elks member, they had a member that was in hospice care, and they were trying. So this is a member that could not come down to the lodge ever again, could not pay their dues, was never going to buy a dinner or a raffle ticket or financially support. But the member had done so much through these years, and they wanted to make sure that member, their cable was paid, meals delivered, that there was somebody with them right to their final days, that they would die with love and dignity. And I said, that's great. So,
yeah, I mean, that's the greatest message that I remember and I'm not going to get too biblical here, but I'm always reminded of this, is what the Lord Jesus said. The Son of Man did not come here to be served, but to serve. And I think the greatest gift that we can all give each other, and the greatest gift that the veterans give all of us, is sometimes their life. They don't come back home. Other times when they do come back home, I've said this many times to friends of mine who don't understand what it's like to be in combat. I do. It's not John Wayne. It's not what you see in the movies. You see a veteran leave. You see him come back, 2 eyes, 2 arms, 2 legs, and you think, oh, he's just as good or she's just as good as the day they left. No, it's up here that gets scrambled. This is what really happens. And our country needs to recognize that veterans, from the day they are separated until whatever, they may need help along the way. And I think what you three do and what the Elks do, that's one of the reasons why I'm going to be joining the lodge down in Miami. Hopefully, you never know. I mean, you never know. Rick may not let me through the front door. You just never know. Or Mike Kahler might stop me too. You just never know. But I want to talk about that. Adopt a Vet. I think this is a very interesting program, and I've never heard of it before until Rick sent me the information. So talk about that. I don't know if Mary will talk about it, or Deborah, or Rick, but talk about that, the success you're having with it and how it's growing.
Yeah. So that's one of our really popular programs, and it can be adapted anywhere across the country. So as one of our main programs, we have volunteers stationed in 354 veterans facilities across the country. And we provide them with funds every month, and they go in and they host activities. They visit with veterans. They buy clothes and hygiene supplies and anything that veterans need. And that's VA medical centers, it's state veterans homes, it's veterans shelters. And so Adopt a Vet kind of grew out of that program. What we were seeing as a lot of these veterans, particularly in state veterans homes, they might be living an hour or two away from their family. They might not have visitors very often. And it can be hard for your mental and your physical health when you don't get out into the community that often. And so the Adopt a Veteran was created to address that, to have our volunteers go into facilities, check in with veterans, make sure to send cards on their birthday, to visit every month, to host activities at those facilities, just so that veteran knows that somebody is looking out for them, to really connect them to the community and invite them to the lodge for dinner, make sure that, bring their grandkids to the veterans home to visit with the veteran as well. So the Adopt a Veteran program can be adapted to really connect with any veteran who needs a little bit of connection with other members of the community and possibly some extra support.
How do they find out about that a veteran is? I mean, do they go through the VA, Mary, to find out that there's some veterans that are in the hospital, or they're homebound and there's nobody around to really go over and just sit and talk for a while and have a conversation? I go to a luncheon, Annette, around here somewhere to have lunch, and there's a bunch of guys who were in Vietnam like me. They were in the Army, they weren't in the Air Force, but I still talk to them anyway. But it's bigamy, isn't it? That's what my 2 wives once said. But at any particular rate, we don't talk about Vietnam, but we talk about everything else: baseball, football, basketball. It's wonderful when you can get together and you don't have to talk about the war. People think that veterans sit around and do nothing but talk about the war. No, we want to forget about the war. We talk about everything else in our lives, our grandchildren, our children, our families, etc. And to know, excuse me, excuse me, that someone's coming and they're going to talk to you and maybe have lunch with you or whatever, even if it's a lousy hamburger. Hey, sometimes hamburger tastes a hell of a lot better than sirloin steak if you have the right company.
That's right. And
Trust me, I was married once. I know.
Well, that's one of the most amazing things about our Elks and the lodges. Like, they offer fellowship, right? They're big-hearted. We're big-hearted, service-minded individuals, right? We like to have fun, and as Rick was saying, our hearts are open. Like, so when we know about somebody in need, and because so many of our members really are tapped into the community in all sorts of ways, right? Like, they're not just a volunteer for the Elks, they're members of other organizations, community organizations as well. So they really know how to address the needs in the communities. And it's really remarkable. It's really something to behold. And that was one of the things that, back to the beginning of the pandemic, when we talked a lot about being sidelined, like the Elks were sidelined because lodges were closed and programs were stopped and all that, but they weren't going to be sidelined. We got our grant money out to them, and they were able to be creative and get to work wearing instead of doing, stand downs, right? Stand downs where veterans experiencing homelessness come and can get services and support and material things. Well, they did drive-through stand downs, that sort of creativity is just remarkable. So Elks won't be sidelined for long. They're going to.
I have a statistic here that I think I found interesting. Rick sent this to me. By the way, Rick, thank you so much for this information. It really opened my eyes to a lot of things that you don't realize. But over 5,321 Elks adopted over 15,000 veterans through this program, Adopt a Vet. Elks recruited 1,500 friends and family members to participate. And I think that's fantastic. I mean, there's nothing makes you feel more wonderful than giving and caring and all that stuff. And by the way, I'm going to give to you three that once I move down to Miami, I'll have you down in January or February as my gift to you here, and bring Mary with you. I know it'll be tough for her to get away from Notre Dame for a while, but Mary went to Notre Dame, ladies and gentlemen. So I have to, and me being a boy who went to the U, well, I'll take her to the campus at the U and I'll show her around what's so magnificent about the University of Miami. There's another program that I found fascinating that is also dependent upon volunteers from the outside, and that's the Leather Program. I found that fascinating, absolutely wonderful. I would never know this exists. Do other Elks, are they aware of this as much as now I am aware of this?
Yeah, so we get volunteers and donations of hides from all across the country for the Veterans Leather Program. And I think last year that was over 16,000 hides. During the pandemic, were donated to that program, and that leather is used for 3 different purposes. Some of it's donated directly to the VA, and recreation therapists there will use it for their own therapy. And then we use it to make wheelchair gloves for veterans. And then in normal times, we go to these adaptive sports competitions across the country and hand them out to the veterans who are competing in those adaptive sports events. And then the third thing we do is we donate quite a bit of that leather to a partner of ours called Help Heal Veterans, and they use it to make craft kits, which are sent to state veterans homes, to VA hospitals for veterans who are recovering, to help them with their dexterity and in concert with their therapists. And so it's a wonderful program and a very unique program.
For those of you that are just tuning in, you're watching Main Street. Gary Allen with you with 3 wonderful people from the Elks Club USA. Mary Morgan, who is in charge of the Veterans Affairs situation. Deborah Doles, who's Assistant Director of ENF, which is the Elks National Foundation. And Rick Gathen, he's a Director of the Membership and Marketing Manager. If there's a hunter out there, there are hunters out there, how do they contact you? They just contact their local lodge and say, look, I'm a hunter. I don't really do a lot with the hides. How do I donate them to you? Is that how they go about it?
Yes, they would contact their local lodge, and then we have state level volunteers who go around and collect all the hides, and then we eventually get them all to the tannery to get them finished so they can be used for their final purpose.
Boy, I'll tell you what, if you go on down to Miami, you'll find a lot of alligators and stuff where you'll be able to get a lot of hides there. I'm telling you, there is a gator down there. This is getting off course here a little bit, but I think it's kind of interesting. There is a gator down there in the Megasuka village. He is 125 years old. He's very old, and he's like, I think 15 feet long. He is huge. That is where my next pair of shoes and belt are coming from.
Hey.
No, and I love animals. But he is big. He's an oldie. He's old, and he's tough as all get. Deborah, you mentioned earlier the welcome home kits. Can we kind of talk about that a little bit, and what they are? And I know it's more to it than just saying a welcome home kit. I know there's a lot involved with it. There's a limitation on it, and then we'll get to some of these other programs.
Sure. I'm actually going to throw that back to Mary because that is one of the programs as well. That's under the Veterans Service umbrella. So she can talk about that. When I had referenced it, many of the grants from the foundation also go to support those sorts of
Okay.
sports.
Well, I just wanted to include you. I didn't want you to feel lonely.
No, I'm.
So Welcome Home Kits is a relatively new program. We've done it for maybe the last few years, 6 years ago. And we started it because oftentimes when a veteran is exiting homelessness and moving into a home, they don't have any belongings. Oftentimes you lose all of your belongings when you have to vacate your home and then you go to a shelter. So this program is designed to connect our Elks volunteers directly with those veterans moving into apartments. And what they'll do is they'll meet with the veteran, go over what they need and what supplies are needed to set up their homes, and they'll provide a bed if it's needed, dishes, towels, plates, cleaning supplies, all the things that you need when you move into a home. And this is a really helpful program. We've had volunteers go into homes to meet with veterans who are, sleeping on coffee tables and, trying to make ends meet with eating fast food because they don't have any cooking supplies or utensils. And so what this does is it connects our volunteers directly with those veterans to get them the supplies they need. And then oftentimes our volunteers do stay in touch with those veterans once they're housed to keep them connected and, so they know that they can go to the Elks for any other supplies that they need moving forward. And we provide, just in the last 6 years, we've already done 500 of those in the last few weeks. This program grows every year. People love it. And we expect to provide more than 2,000 of those this year alone. And possibly 3,000 this year.
Wow. I mean, that is very impressive. You guys don't fool around. I mean, when you guys get involved in something, you kind of go full bore. I wish the rest of the world was as ambitious as you guys are. But I'll be honest with you. If they let me in through the front door down there, you're going to be hearing from me. Number one, because I'm going to want to have the three of you back on periodically to talk about the different programs, which reminds me, before we get into the Dap program and some of the other scholarship programs for Elks members and their families, along with one program that I think is absolutely fantastic, and that is that if an elk passes away or becomes totally disabled and they have a child, a daughter or a son that's in college, that there is a scholarship program to help them. I think the maximum amount of money is $5,000 a year, and it has to be renewed every year. We're going to get into that, but are there any new programs down there that you guys can talk about? I know you're at your convention, so maybe a few things have already been mentioned. I know it's within a couple of days of just getting there. But is there any new programs coming down that you could kind of alert us to that say, hey, this is coming down the road for the vets as well as for our members?
Well, can I throw a plug in first?
Sure.
The important thing is, how do you join? How do you become a part of this organization? How do you help the veterans? How do you help the kids? Go to join.elks.org. Join.elks.org. And then you give you just a little couple of things to fill out. And then your information will go right into a local lodge and they can contact you. So it's a new website we put up last year.
Okay.
Because the more we can get like you, the more we can help, the more we can make a difference.
Yeah.
Well, I know, Rick, like I keep saying, and I know Rick Del Vecchio's watching. He's, like I said, he's like my big brother, and I love him with all my heart. He and Martha. Rick and I have been working together for 30 years in the broadcast business. well over 30 years. I don't know. He's a little sketchy. He's like, I don't know, Gary. For years you used to say that any organization that wanted you, you didn't want to join. And that's true. There was a VA organization, not VA, but a VFW out in Las Vegas where I was a performer. They wanted me to join. And I went to a meeting once, and all they did was sit around and I said, no, that's not for me. I was a little too young at that point in time. But now that I'm up there and doing all the crazy stuff like that, let's talk a little bit about the Dapper Program, because I think this is extremely important. And the Dap Program, for those of you that may not be aware of it at all, and I find this absolutely fantastic, is a program about drug addiction and making the kids well aware of it. I'm trying to find, oh, here we go. I find my notes. I take so many notes. Unlike Larry, who I interned with, I do notes. The Dapper Program is a program that you talk to young people about drugs and the addiction of it and staying away from it, and talk about that. Now, is that, Deborah, is that under your auspices?
It is something that the Elks National Foundation funds, but it is run by an amazing group of volunteers that are, incredibly dedicated to making sure that kids stay away from drug use and abuse. It's basically a vehicle to get information out there. So we have lots of fact cards that a lodge could use to order for various community events going into schools. They also have 2 speakers that go around the country. Have a speaker to talk to kids using language that they know and they understand. So it's not like, a professor going in and saying, don't do drugs. It's a very relatable conversation. And they, like Mary in the VA, the leadership of the Drug Awareness Program is partnering with the Drug Enforcement Agency and the federal government on what they do, and the federal government is well aware about all that the Elks do to help kids be educated about and have opportunities to learn more about the perils of drug use and abuse.
Yeah. I mean, it is really horrible. Since 1982, the Elks have been involved in this program, fighting it. And I'll be honest with you, I know one of our first ladies, a wonderful lady, Nancy Reagan, once said, just say no. But unfortunately, when you see your mom and dad struggling to put food on the table, and then you see the drug dealer on the corner making millions of dollars or thousands of dollars selling drugs, it's kind of, enticing to get involved in that end of the world. But what they don't realize is what they're getting involved in today has an everlasting effect on the rest of your life unless you just quickly get out of it. Would you say that it's had a tremendous success rate as far as helping young people stay away from drugs, stay off of drugs, and do better things with their lives, Deborah?
I mean, I would absolutely say that is the case. Just having people in the communities talking to kids about these things, and not sweeping it under the rug, talking to parents about these sorts of perils. I think that's really been, like you said, since 1982, it's been going strong. And it changes all the time too. That's the other thing, is nothing is static in that sort of program, right? Like they're learning about all the new, whatever's hot, whatever's trendy at the time. Unfortunately that happens. They have that part about opioids, all the things that we hear a lot about, and sometimes things that we don't hear a lot about, but that the program is aware of, and making sure that kids and their parents and schools, educators are aware that this is something they should know about.
Yeah. I mean, it's so wonderful, the different directions you guys go in. I don't know how you managed to keep track of it. Mary, was there anything you wanted to add to the home kits that you didn't get a chance to?
I mean, I could talk about the Welcome Home Kits all day long. We have so many wonderful stories about our volunteers who, we'll meet with the veteran and go shopping with them to pick out their supplies. We hear stories about how, we buy, if a veteran is moving in with their children, oftentimes our volunteers will buy the children's school supplies and beds and things like that. We had one volunteer tell us a story about how a veteran and her 2 kids were homeless for quite a long time, and then when they finally moved them into their home, they came while the girls were at school and surprised them with bunk beds, and the girls were so excited. They climbed right in and didn't get out until the next morning. So
Yeah.
because it can make a huge difference, and especially we've heard from veterans in terms of helping them make ends meet as well, so that you can cook more at home and have the things you need. You don't have to go out and spend more money on food when you can make your own affordable food at your house.
Yeah. You know what I really love about what you guys do? A lot of organizations just do something on Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter. You guys are there 365. And that's what I think is really the important message that needs to be gotten out here. Gary Allen here with you on Main Street, 4 o'clock on Fridays. Next week, Jeffrey Mark will be joining you. I think Anson Williams is joining him finally. Anson has been in production doing some stuff. So join Jeffrey next week. And we're here with 3 wonderful people from the Elks Club of America talking about all the benefits and everything that the Elks do. And that's what I like about the Elks and organizations, is that you're just not there for those 3 days. You're there 365, helping people, helping families become, because that's the whole thing about this country, families. I was talking to a friend of mine who's a production assistant on Blue Bloods, and I said, "What's the most mail you guys get on that show?" He said, "It's the family dinner, whether it's at the beginning of the show or the middle or the end, which is usually on the end. It's the family dinner." And when I ran into Donnie Wahlberg, I said, "Donnie, what are your fan mail?" He said, "It's the family. It's this family sitting around the table." He said, "I don't even do that in my real life." He said, but because I'm so busy, and his wife is busy in the business too. But it's the families, and I think that's what you guys at the Elks project: that family atmosphere, that family feeling of you're loved, you're wanted, you're cared for. We want you, we love you, we care about you. Whether you're a veteran or just a member, you're part of our family, and that's what I think makes my heart really glad and joyful to have you on and to talk about these wonderful, wonderful programs. Now, I want to talk about scholarships.
Sure.
Because you have some wonderful scholarship programs for undergraduate studies. It goes year by year. Is that under your auspice, Mary, or is it under yours, Deborah? It's under Deborah. Okay.
It's under the foundation. That's right. You touched upon one of my favorite, the emergency educational grant, which is for the college-aged children of deceased or totally disabled Elks. As you mentioned, those are single-year grants up to $5,000. So if you're going to be going to school for 4 years, that's $20,000 that the Elks have helped you with. Of course, the intent is that somebody who's lost a parent, very often could be in a situation where you struggle for finances, right? Like things weren't the same. Either you had one earner or two, but things changed for you, and we want to be there to help. That program's been around since the mid 40s. Our most valuable student scholarship is our flagship scholarship program, and that started in the early 1930s. And that is for high school seniors who are U.S. citizens who are going on to college, usually a 4-year. Sometimes they start out at 2-year colleges. And that's for 500. We award 500 of those, with the top 2 winners receiving $50,000 scholarships. So we also have a legacy awards program, which is for the children and grandchildren of Elks members. So we awarded 350 legacy awards of $4,000 4-year scholarships over 4 years. And we awarded those in April as well. And so it's a little bittersweet for us to be here, Gary, at convention, because we are usually here at convention celebrating the successes of these past contests, right? So we bring our top 2 MVS scholarship winners here. We bring our top winning hoop shoot, we call them the Getty Powell Award winners. They're the best overall shooters, boy and girl shooters. And they're usually here with us with their families. So an Elks convention is really like a family reunion to us. As you said, it is family. And Mary and I are in our offices in Chicago, but when we get to come to convention, we get to connect with people from all across the country that we talk to and that we support. And so it's so wonderful to be back and be together again. We're not wearing masks, we're vaccinated and ready to go here. And it's just seeing people. I arrived yesterday from Chicago, and just seeing people's faces with no masks and feeling free to give a hug, right? It's just been so heartwarming. But we are missing our top winners and their families, and getting to show them who the Elks are. even more than they realized from either, you know, their participation in the hoop shoot, which starts at the lodge level and moves up, or our scholars who oftentimes the lodges host awards banquets where they bring the scholarship recipients into the lodge to celebrate them. So those are our three big scholarships. The MVS scholarship, our legacy awards, and the emergency educational grants. But I would be remiss without mentioning our Weigel medical school scholarships. And Lee Weigel was from Miami, and her husband Gunther Weigel was a member of the Miami Lodge. And she had left the foundation money to support our scholars who were going on to medical school. So in July, we will award 10 $22,000 scholarships to Elks scholars who are starting medical school this fall. So we're incredibly, incredibly proud of that.
Wow.
It is a unique opportunity for individuals who have received a scholarship from us, who then are choosing to go, and there just aren't many scholarships available for medical school students, right? You're getting maybe money from college, but not outside sources. So thank you to the generosity of the Miami Elks and to the Florida Elks for making that happen. And we're really proud of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's just, like I said, you know, it's just so wonderful to see you guys and to hear about these wonderful, wonderful programs. When you say the scholarship programs, naturally, I think of the top heads of the class. Is that it primarily, or are there other parameters involved as well?
Well, the most valuable student scholars are next level. They are the top. They are the cream of the crop, top of their class. They are going to change the world. There is no doubt. I mean, they come to us and their resume is long and their service is deep, and you know they tests are, you know, near perfect, and they're, you know, getting 5.0s on 4.0 GPA scales. They're very, very outstanding students, and that's what we're looking for: outstanding students who are service-minded, like we are. So that's that. But and our MBS too. Our legacy as well. There are criteria we're looking for. For individuals who are committed to their communities, and so that's what the rubric reflects for our legacy. You know, they're the children and grandchildren of Elks, so it's in them.
Yeah, I mean, it just sounds like the people that become Elks and you three are people who care about the world that you live in. You care about the people that live in it, and you want to make a difference in the different communities. Now, the three of you, of course, are in Chicago. And you know, that's a city that I know and love very, very much. But we've got about 6 or 7 minutes left. Are there any things that Rick, anything you'd like to add to the program today?
Well, I'm just going to keep on plugging join.elks.org, because we, you know, again, if you want to be part of an organization that makes a difference with no political affiliations, we don't. You know, this is the place. This is we call ourselves, well, it's kind of a nickname that we've had for, you know, pretty much our 153 years. It's the BPOE, the best people on earth. It is a wonderful organization that you will never regret being part of. And again, it's not the politicians that change the world, it's the volunteers. This is the place for you.
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, they're I worked in Washington for a number of years, so I know it isn't necessarily the politicians. It's you know, it's everybody else involved in all of this. You guys are really something else again. And yes, I will have you back. I definitely got to have you back with what we want to do down in Miami. That's for sure. Deborah, is there anything you'd like to add before we have to say goodbye?
Yeah, I just want to quickly say back to our, you know, when we welcome our scholarship recipients, you know, when they're receiving an award, we always say we're welcoming them into the Elks family, and that's something we start messaging that right away, and that it's really just what we want our scholars to know and to understand. And we don't want to just be a check to our scholars. So we have all sorts of engagement opportunities where we're engaging them and we're trying to get them engaged with the lodge. And one of the things we started back in 2015 are our Elks Scholar Service Trips. And they are 3 trips a year to various different parts of the country, and it's for up to 20 Elk scholars to travel to a city and to serve in that city. And there's usually a lodge or 2 or 3 that's part of helping support them when they're in the city in wherever they're serving. Those trips were sidelined, of course, because of the pandemic. So we are just starting to come back now. We're doing 3 smaller trips. So up to 10 scholars. We're going to have one in Chicago this summer, one in Santa Monica, Los Angeles area, and then one in Boston. But our winter trip that happens over the winter break, obviously for most undergrads, is going to be in Miami. So you heard it here first. That's not true. We talked about it. We let that cat out of the bag earlier in the month. But yeah, we're going to hopefully have 20 Elks scholars serving Miami this winter in January. And we have a wonderful Elks Scholar Fellow who was a scholarship recipient who comes to our office and works for 2 years just as a fellowship. She leads these programs. So we'll be getting in a new fellow in the summer, next summer. But yeah, so Miami. And of course, our hearts are all with Miami right now as they're going through that absolute.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard to know what's going on. I mean, with the building collapsing there, and of course now with this storm that may go through, which will delay that even more, which is heartbreaking for someone who grew up in Miami, who's moving back home to Miami. I've been gone for 20 plus years. And I never thought I'd ever move back, but there's something about Miami that keeps drawing me back. It's sort of like Al Pacino in The Godfather. They keep dragging me back in every time I think I'm going to get out. Rich, talk one more time about membership and how they can find out to become a member of the Elks.
Yeah, the best way is really online right now. But if not, they can go, if they don't know anybody that's an Elk, go to the joinelks.org, and then we'll help guide you into the door. If you have a friend that's a member of the lodge, all members started as a guest, just like you were about to. Rick was your sponsor. He invites you in as a guest. We all started as a guest, so every new member starts as a guest. Mm-hmm. And you'll find out. Well, they'll take you through an orientation program. A lot of that we on the join.elks.org, we laid that all out for you, and there's a lot of fun things you can click on. And you'll see a little video on why we joined. They're really high energy. You'll learn and you'll feel very good about the organization itself. But again, it's how to be part of the community, and it's a very welcoming organization. But the quickest path to go, and while your curiosity after you leave the show here, go to join.elks.org. And you'll it's a new website. If I can, this just even since April, you're thinking we're coming out of the pandemic. We have a record-setting amount of numbers coming in right now. If you think about since April, we have over 26,000 members that we've added.
Wow.
We're almost at 90% of our current members paid already in the year. These are on both ends. We're on track to have over 100,000 members added to our rolls coming off the pandemic. Those are our best numbers since 1991. Wow. And we're going to break all retention numbers in terms of the members sticking with us. So when you think about organizations, volunteer organizations who are crying, nobody's joining, nobody cares, this is one that you really probably want to say, I got to take a look at this. The data that's happening right now for the Elks is very favorable. And again, the more we get involved, the more people we can help. Let's end this veterans homelessness. Let's get these kids in college. Let's focus on our veterans, our youth, the betterment of our communities. We're pretty excited. And as you can see, if you were thinking about, an organization that you think may be a bunch of old timers, obviously, or are just males, you're seeing, I don't think that's the faces you see with us right now. We're attracting, I think, America's best people right now.
Yeah. Mary, is there anything you want to say? I'm giving the lady from Notre Dame the last word.
I would say, make sure you tell me when you do officially become a member, and I'm going to put you to work. I'll have you delivering welcome home kits to veterans in no time.
Okay. Sounds great to me. I want to thank all 3 of you. I want to thank all of you out there for joining us. We had Mary Morgan, who's the Director of National Veteran Service Commission, and Deborah Doles, Assistant Director of ENF, which is the Elks National Foundation, and my good friend Rick Gathen, who is the Director of Membership and Marketing out of Chicago, Illinois. Thank you, three of you. Stay right where you are. As soon as we go off the air, we're going to talk a little bit. But thank all of you out there for taking the time to join us here on Main Street. Jeffrey Mark will be your fill-in co-host next week, my dear friend Jeffrey. I think Anson Williams is going to be joining him, as Anson did join with me not too long ago. So until next time, take care of yourselves and each other.
Thank